This episode of Harvey Brownstone Interviews is brought to you by the Harvey Brownstone Talk Show Blend Coffee, available at hollywoodblends.com. Everyone's saying it's the best coffee they've ever tasted. Why not give it a try and see for yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey Brownstone, and today's guest is an actor, producer, writer, animator, and martial artist who made his big screen debut at the age of 3 in Universal Soldier, starring his superstar father, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Since then, he and his father have worked together in a number of other great movies, including some of my favorites, The Quest, Universal Soldier, Regeneration, and Day of Reckoning, The Ego Path, Assassination Games, Six Bullets, Welcome to the Jungle, Enemies Closer, Blackwater, and Darkness of Man. He was also in The Philly Kid, and he's got 2 movies in post-production, soon to be released, The Farmer and Crime Time. He's a huge inspiration to fitness enthusiasts, and he's a passionate supporter of animal rights. I am delighted to welcome Kris Van Damme to our show. Kris, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Harvey, for having me, sir. I appreciate the introduction.
First of all, I have to say that you are not known for granting many interviews, Kris. You've been very selective about who you speak with, and so I want you to know how much I truly appreciate your faith in me.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure.
Kris, over the years, we've had a lot of children of major stars appear on our show, and they've all said that having a famous parent is nowhere near as glamorous as people think it is. Do you agree with that?
It is, and it depends on the upbringing and, how you were raised in terms of your foundation, I think.
Well, for your whole life, you've carried the weight of your father's name on your shoulders, and so do your sister and brother. Has that weight on your shoulders gotten easier for you as you've gotten more accomplished in the film industry and as you've gotten older?
I think the main one is as I've gotten older. I'm very lucky. I have a very solid foundation in terms of athleticism, and athleticism is a very good foundation for the mindset. It keeps you, I guess, balanced and structured, so to speak. Yeah, it was hard in the beginning because, you go to school and you start discovering your youth and young adulthood as you grow older, but with this, with this reflection that people are projecting onto you, because as we know, media is massive from the 80s, 90s, and now. And early 2000s, it all kind of just escalates higher and higher. So you deal with all that baggage. But is it really baggage is what you have to ask yourself. And how can you use it to kind of shape yourself instead of getting lost in the void?
When you've heard or read things in the media about your family that just aren't true, I think you've shown tremendous maturity by just ignoring it, not biting the bait. Where did you learn how to do that?
Believe it or not, everyone. So I've met a few, offspring of celebrities throughout my time here and there, and I've had my roller coasters, but my father's always taught me to always do a good job with whatever film you land or get. And I applied that principle to life. So I think by always trying to see what the best path is in a diplomatic form, so to speak, that's the best way to take, because everybody's human. We all make mistakes. We all try to survive in this society we call life, so to speak, again. And, it kind of either breaks you or makes you. So I think you have to take control of the reins of your own life and make the best decision possible. So, there's a lot of hype with my father's career. Also, it reflects off some of the family members. Some of it is not true. A lot of it isn't, actually. And we just you can chase the horse as much as you want, but you're going to be chasing it no matter what. There's more people than one person. So you're going to have to just self-reflect on the inside and have your own core strength, so to speak, mentally and physically.
Well, whether you understand it or not, you are a role model because of the way that you've behaved when those things have happened. And I think it's fair to say, Kris, that your father worked extremely hard to get where he got to, even though he often says it was a matter of being in the right place at the right time. You know how hard he worked, and that work ethic, the perseverance, the consistency, the focus were always there. Do you feel that you've inherited those qualities?
Yes, I do, actually. And that's something that I used to fight with myself about. I used to, when I was much younger, primarily more so in my tween years. So from 11 to 15-ish, when you're discovering yourself as a young human being, I would compare myself to my father and others a lot. And, why can't I do this? I've got no value. I'm worthless. I'm this, I'm that. Until you hit some form of rock bottom of what it would be to your situation, psychologically speaking. Some others have, other rock bottoms, but we all have our own path. And so I've hit my rock bottom, in which I realized I can only go up, which is a cliche thing to say, but at the same time, it is true. That's why it's a cliche. And I've gathered all the best advice my father, my grandparents, my mother gave me to pick myself back up and move forward. And then it gave me clarity with maturity. While I was maturing, I began to understand what my father meant, that decade ago, or all those years ago. Now I see kind of where he was struggling in his roller coaster life. And I sympathize and have compassion for those moments because I put myself in his shoes. And again, we gain clarity as we mature. So we understand, the equation's easier to fulfill because of experience. So I'm very lucky. I managed to marry a woman who is really stable and understands the sensitivity bracket that I idle in on a constant basis, which is very, very intense to some degree, but that's my DNA and I have to deal with it. And I was having this conversation with her this morning over breakfast. We were talking about, that because we're planning on building a family and all this. And it's something that needs to be structurally understood prior to that venture together. So yes, I did struggle with some of this, but I did take the best parts of what he's taught me and my mom's taught me about her experience with him and everybody else in the family.
Well, since you've mentioned your wonderful mom, the amazing Gladys Portugues, she's a world famous elite bodybuilder, fitness expert. She's also an actress. What qualities do you feel you inherited from her?
I've inherited her grace. I've inherited her kindness. I'm a yes man in all the good ways possible. I love to help people, and I can't say no to someone who and my father has these traits too, but my mother is just a saint. And that's why my father, I think, and he says this a lot, why he's still around is because she's really, been the spine to his psychology for so many years. I mean, their roller coaster is amazing. I think that I've taken my loyalty and my commitment to people from my mother. She's extremely faithful to her family and close friends, and it's beautiful to watch. And of course, she's had her struggles and she's gotten through it, and we support each other, me, her, my sister, my brother, my father. And when I say my brother Nick, he's as close to me as a full brother than anyone's full brother or very close friend. So yeah, I think I've taken my dedication to craft, my perfectionism, and when I train or when I paint or when I do any of my projects, my perseverance would be my father's, I think, and my consistency and devotion and attention to detail would be from my mother. So I apply that to life and art projects alike.
I think I can add to that. You also inherited your empathy from your mom. You have
Yes.
tremendous graciousness and kindness. Your reputation within the industry, because I did my homework, is that you're a very nice guy. You don't have a huge ego and you're empathetic and compassionate to people. I think a lot of that came from your mom.
Yes, it did. Yes, you're absolutely correct.
Now,
Yes.
in 2011, you appeared in your father's reality TV show called Behind Closed Doors. Was that a positive experience for you?
The fact that it wasn't scripted was. There were some little minute moments where ITV wanted to script it, but we tried to keep it as unscripted as possible. And out of a percentage ratio, I would say it was maybe 13% prescripted to 100%. So it was very realistic. And what that did help was clarify how we can come across as a misunderstood or understood family in the industry, and just kind of give good knowledge and faith to people. And there were some rocky moments in that series, but just to let people see kind of how it is to really be, an offspring of, at least in my department, of this, mega superstar icon that is my father's likeness, and how we handle ourselves in the world. I thank my past as a fan of video games and anime and cartoons. That was my escape, as my father's was books, because he grew up in a flower shop and in a bookstore. My grandfather had a bookstore, my grandparents, and so that kind of helped me get through the limelight of stuff to try to recenter myself in the hype of it all. So that experience was kind of a reflection of that with that TV series, and I wish it kind of continued, actually, because there was a lot more we could have grown on, and we almost did, and we should have, I think. But maybe in the future there will be another version of it. We just don't like to put up a barrier of some kind. And of course, we all have our demons we don't show the world, which is normal. But we don't brag about it, and we don't dangle it in front of people for the woe is me factor. We there's no gain in that other than self-worth, and then no one sees it. So why is it worth doing? So at the same time, it was good, but I wish we had more for that show.
Well, I hope that when you and your wife have kids, that you don't do it, because I think it's better for them not to have that spotlight on them.
It is definitely a spotlight. Yeah, it's a hot spotlight. But at the same time, there's a dichotomy with having a spotlight on you, and a lot of people tend to not see it because they get overwhelmed, they get scared. There's eternal amount of reasons. But I do my best to try to build a understanding at the foundation, like we previously discussed at the head of the conversation. When you teach a child that is going to be under the spotlight, and as they grow under it, I think I like what Jason Momoa does with his kids. He involves them a lot, and he makes it feel like, oh, I could be a kid of Jason's as well. That what a cool environment to be in. Now, of course, that may not be the truth 100% of the time because we're human, but at the same time, it is what we signal when we're under pressure. Our survival mechanism kicks in, and we are in the spotlight. We have to act good. We have to show an example. Some people just really don't care. They just lay back and whatever. And Steve McQueen, and that's cool too, but that's who they are. So I guess it depends on how you raise them. But I understand what you're saying. I really do, because there was a moment in my life when I really didn't want to be part of the spotlight, and I resented my parents, and I resented myself before them, or at least I realized that with time. And it was all for growth. We grow and we go through things, and now we're stronger than ever. At least I believe so. And it feels really great. It feels like it's a new chapter, a rebirth, so to speak, to some degree.
I believe your first time on a movie set was Lionheart when you were only 3 years old. I'm wondering whether you can identify the moment when you totally knew that you wanted to work in the movie industry.
Oh yes, I can, and I love telling this one. We came home from a day of shooting, since we shot mostly in Los Angeles. They were shooting a scene with Sheldon's firstborn daughter. Was it Micheline? I believe it was Micheline Lettich. Micheline is a sweetheart. Micheline, Jessica, and Angelique. Yes. So Micheline was the oldest, and they were shooting a scene. And I remember that I wanted to be in front of the camera because I just loved the smoke machines, the lighting, the cameras, and I saw my dad, who was my hero and still is my hero in so many ways, shapes, and forms. And I wanted to kind of take the mantle instinctually. So I wanted to be a part of this realm that I was so respected in terms of being the son of this guy. And hey, bud, hey, champ, hey, and it felt like a cool environment to be in. But there was something more to it that I couldn't put my finger on because I'm just a kid. And so when we came home, my grandmother, who's my late grandmother, who passed away last year, God bless her, was one of my best friends. She told me, she put me in my room and she said, I remember the vision. I don't remember the exact dialogue, but I remember the essence of the moment. And it was, what do what did you think about today, so to speak? And I said, I want to do what my dad does. I want to do exactly that. So I started to get into martial arts at the age of 5, and I started to progress in that, trained by my father and other martial artists alike, different forms, and grew up doing, the whole following in the footsteps thing, which then started to change over time. But the love for cinema never did. And I realize now in my older years, I'm 38, going on 39 now. In my older years, I realized that movies are so much more than just following something that's comforting. It's a reflection of yourself. There's a storytelling factor in there that is irreplaceable and timeless, and you can't repeat the truth, as my father says, every take. And I'm sure Daniel Day-Lewis, who's my favorite actor, would agree with. But there's something more to cinema now. I've realized over time I've become more of a director than I have an actor. And I love acting. I'm just very selective. And most of my trials and tribulations in the acting world, and there's a lot of them, believe me, especially the auditioning world. I've got some crazy stories we can talk about if you ever want to. I've realized that it's not the action world for me, and I'll do it. I just finished an action film, but with a great director, Luc Lafontaine, who's also a very dear friend of mine. Jesse Johnson, who's a renowned action director in the industry, and Brent Foster, who is a phenomenal martial artist. But for me, it's crazy because when I was on set, I was the one who was trying to catch up with all these other actors who were martial artists as well, and I felt so out of place with myself. I felt like I failed my original vision. But that wasn't what it was. It grew to this. So I trained really hard with them for the short amount of time we were together. And I can continuing now, thanks to this project. I'm training with Luke, swordsmanship, different forms of swordsmanship. At least I'm beginning soon because we just wrapped a Star Wars piece, a fan film piece I directed and wrote and financed and a bunch of other stuff. But I know I'm going on a tangent here, but it's super important for people to know that I've kind of molded my path through experience and hardships in the industry. And I will act continuously, but I think I want to direct more so than be in front of camera, which I'm open to. It just depends. I'm very selective.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. You mentioned that when you were 5, your dad got you into martial arts. You studied ballet, you studied jazz, even tap dancing,
Yes,
in
sir.
addition to a whole lot of other sports when you were growing up. Do you think, Kris, that all those activities gave you a kind of a structure and a discipline that equipped you to handle the pressures in your life as an adult?
I would be an idiot to say no. Yes, they did. By all means, sports is the number one thing I think that really centers people because we're so attached to our physical vessels. Whether it's walking, running, training, it doesn't matter what type of training. Sports is wonderful and it gave me a discipline, yes. And when I say idiot, I meant ignorant, but I would be ignorant if I said no. The athleticism, also mentioned in the opening of our conversation here, is, I think, key to my discipline, yes. I mean, I fold my bed sheets every morning. If my wife is busy on the run doing something, I take care of it. I fold my clothes every night before going to bed. I put everything in order before going to sleep. So when I wake up, it's ready there, ready to go. No matter how tired I am, I'll do it. And I promised my grandfather to always take care of my body because he told me if you can lift a box, you can do anything. So I try to, remember all these teachings that my elders have shared with me.
You're an old soul, my friend. You're really an old soul. It seems to me you haven't fallen victim to many of the pitfalls that so many other Hollywood kids have experienced. I mean, I know you had a bit of a substance abuse problem in your 20s, but you overcame that very well, don't you think?
I think so, sir. I think so. We all have our roller coasters. Yes.
Well, now, as I
Yes.
mentioned, you started martial arts at the age of 5. You even competed in martial arts for about 8 to 10 years, but then you decided it wasn't what you wanted to do. Is that because you realized at some point that becoming the next Jean-Claude Van Damme is really not who you are? It's not who you want to be.
To some degree, yes. It's not just that because we can have these beautiful, very deep, and they're important conversations for certain societies around the globe. But then you go to a country like Kazakhstan or you go to a country like Russia, where my father is huge, and if I were to meet them, all they ask me is, "Can you do like your dad?" And it's not their fault; it's what they know. So I've come to a conclusion, and actually, Luc Lafontaine in the last film told me this. He's like, the producers like you in this film. They want to have a fight between you and Bren Foster, and we do. We have a little something something in there, which is fun. But at the same time, there's more to it than just that. You're not just doing this because you are your father's son. You're doing this because it's part of the script. You can, but it's not who you are. I think my father falls into the same category. There's so much more to him than just the Wham Bam Van Dam deal, and that's cool. And he uses it, and there's an honor code behind it because it is ancient martial arts, Shotokan, and kickboxing. So there is a form of discipline in there that he integrates it with stardom values and action prowess. That is his genre. I mean, he's one of the tops in his genre. So he has to trampoline off of it each and every time. And there's a hindrance to the soul if you allow it every time you throw a kick. You have to know that, okay, I'm going to throw this roundhouse. It's illogical, but I'm doing it because my fans love this and love me through it. But then I'm going to give them some acting afterwards so they can enjoy both spectrums. And that's kind of what I've learned through maturity, how to adapt my anger of, I got this shadow. I'm drinking my life away in my 20s. And I can do all the stuff he does, but no one respects me. And I can recite Shakespeare, but no one understands that. And my father has sat me down. We've had our conflicts, but we've had also our camaraderie moments and more of than conflict, which is great. And I'm very thankful for. But he sat me down. He said, you have to understand that what we do is a brand and you are carrying the torch. Even if it's 1%, you're carrying that torch 1%. And I think it would be around 30 to 45% that I would carry it in terms of quality, aesthetics, and timing, because no one can surpass him. I mean, he is who he is. And we can't repeat the truth, as discussed before. So we have to find our own tempo, color, and tone for your department, and then blink that flagship and people say, hey, look at the new Mercedes. Hey, look at the new Ferrari. I can see the lines from the past they're trying to bring back in, but with a new touch. So that's kind of how I see the answer to that question. Yes.
When I look at your film career so far, which began by appearing in your dad's movies, it's taken you quite a while to do work that's independent of him. Was that a deliberate choice on your part?
Yes and no. It's actually funny. It's the birth of a very bipolaric decision on my part. Meaning I must have done over 2,000 auditions, probably, maybe, I'm guessing almost 3,000. I haven't really counted, but it feels like multiple thousands of auditions. And through those auditioning moments, you start to realize, pardon my French, the fuckery in the industry. But there's a lot of nonsense, so to speak, in the industry, and a lot of pages glued to each other, never to be opened again. And when you do, it tears, so you can never find out the truth. And I've been through, as my father before me has, and many, many celebrity alike have, they all have these stories, have been through the confines and tunnels of these pages and have finally found the page they want to reside on. So through the ups and downs of saying yes and no to different projects, I've been offered everything from very adult rated projects to, higher end projects that I've auditioned for on multiple counts, and then of course didn't get the role because you got the tier system. A cast are the multi-million cast that bank the film, and then B cast are the TV show and soap opera cast, and then the C cast is us. And so because I was in the C cast back then, and now I'm just breaching the B cast, which is cool, there's a lot of ins and outs there, political ins and outs, and a lot of, hey, meet me at my hotel room, hey, meet me for dinner, and all that stuff. So a lot of it required me to, and as tempting as some of it was, especially under my days of substance abuse, I can get through this easier. I always decided to have my grandfather's words be the last words in my head. Don't do this. Don't repeat things that have been done by others. And I'm not saying that my father did it before me. He's been very strict as well because of his martial arts background. And then that's something also that if I did something worse than my dad and I'm already under his shadow, how would I, carry the torch and be believed by fans alike if I had done something like this and the news came out? So, this caused me to just have a safe zone. Hey, Dad, let me know when you've got a movie. I have a movie and there's a role inside for you. Maybe you might like it. I don't know. So, okay, let's do it. And I auditioned for some of them, and some of them were given to me, which I'm very grateful for. And what it did was it allowed me to become a better actor. So I use it as training. So every opportunity that I had, I jumped on immediately to train myself as an actor the best I could. And what better than with someone who shares your DNA that forces you to observe in the process, play his son, yeah, but at the same time, bring your own color. Force yourself to find something different yet similar. And that's the magic that in that decision that I made, yeah.
You've just said something that's actually quite important that a lot of young male actors never want to talk about, and that is the audition process, and particularly the unscrupulous casting directors in this industry
Yeah.
who seek to exploit and take advantage, and let's be honest, abuse
Yeah.
young men. We hear about it a lot with women. We do not hear many men say that they also have to deal with this unwanted attention and the not so subtle message that if you want this role, you have to deliver in a way that you don't want to.
Yeah.
How do you still want to be in this industry when you're dealing with really a brutal environment? It is brutal.
It is. And a lot of people, we don't know the head count that don't survive in terms of they give up. I have some friends that gave up and I told them, don't give up, come back in, we'll work together on some stuff. And we've done that. You stay in because you love it. You stay in because there's something inside, deep inside that in some way, shape, or form, or to some degree, you will marry that point or throw the dart at the target at some point in your life. And a lot of people have trouble with age. A lot of people say, well, I'm going to be 50 and 60, I need to think about my life. And yeah, you should always do that, but you shouldn't give up on what your purpose is. And look at Louis de Funès in France. I mean, this guy made it in the 50s. I think he was in his 50s. He was a doorman and piano man until the 50s, and he became the reason why Jim Carrey is who he is. And so if you have these types of stories to kind of remotivate you that are buried in the sands of time, I think that might help. Because a lot of actors and yourself alike, being a host to interview all these people, you have to have a certain sensitivity bracket to follow the bandwidth. And when I'm speaking, I can see that you're understanding, and I can feel it through the electromagnetic field here, as my father said, which I love. And there's a frequency there. And that sensitivity bracket is what's lost in this society of cinema today. We put these people in charge of very important departments, and then they just kind of throw it away by not caring or abusing the system, like you suggested. And it's 100% true. It's not a suggestion; it's a fact. In fact, I've been asked multiple times. I mean, I even was once in an audition. I was sent to an audition once that was already shooting, just because at the time the agency that represented my father took me on. They took on some young agent who represented me. I won't disclose any names, but this guy was like, oh, I have the son of, and I have link to the father for other projects because I'm an agent in training. Let me just grab any script I see off the bottom of my, editing room floor and tell him to go audition at it. And didn't even check that this thing was in production already. I mean, they were shooting for 2 weeks when I arrived. So that really perturbed me. And then, different stories of just like being asked to sleep with people. And I've been to dinners where come meet me for dinner. Okay, this might be something. You go with hopes. You ride your motorcycle there in LA. It's really cool. You feel like a movie star already. You get off the bike. You walk into the place. Everybody's looking at you because you're good looking and you're tall and all this nonsense. And you sit down and you start to realize after one or two glasses of wine that something's not good here. And the sensitivity bracket we just discussed kicks in. And then it tells you, hey man, you got to get the hell out of Dodge because this is not right. But it's a big movie that's $80 million, and yeah, but something's wrong, dude. And then you get slid the hotel room key, and you're like, okay, there it is. And many a time, Harvey, did I think about it. Many a time did I say, this will be easy, but wait a minute. If I do it, is it guaranteed? And there was one time I asked this casting director, could I have a paper signed? And that person left the dinner table and made me pay the bill. And I was like, okay, that's pretty, I should have left. So there's a lot of stories like that, and some other ones that involve a little more close to physical altercations that I don't want to speak about because it's unnecessary, and we can imagine where that might go. But yeah, it's a sad industry, and I really hope for those actors, male and female alike, out there. But yes, you're right. We don't speak about the male abuse a lot because now the system is more ranged towards a certain sex appeal, so to speak. But there is a lot of male abuse in there, and for both sides of the spectrum, whether you're straight or homosexual or bisexual, whatever. There is abuse in all those departments. And, we as people need to understand that we as people, not if you're, straight or homosexual, doesn't matter what color you are. What matters is, as a human being, you have this sensitivity bracket that needs to be respected. You have a purpose in life. And if you're gonna, shit all over my purpose, well, that's not cool. So
100%. And it's also about your integrity. It's about your self esteem. It's about you knowing that you got the role because of your talent, not because you forked over in a way that is totally repugnant to everything you were raised with. And I'm very proud of you that you've got your principles. You're ambitious, but you're not prepared to compromise who you are. I'm interested that you said your favorite actor is Daniel Day-Lewis.
yes.
That's so interesting because I see you as an action, sci-fi, suspense, thriller kind of actor. Do you want to do more dramatic roles like Daniel Day-Lewis?
I would love to. And we can do that in sci-fi and action too, which I think is cool because then you bring an A24 styled value to a genre that's been kind of whipped the same way for all these years. Daniel is I've only studied him. I've never studied anybody else. I've studied some Peter Stormare, who I had the chance to work with, as well as my brother, which was great. And he's fantastic. But Daniel just brings that extra love, that sparkle to cinema that you just know he loves movies. He just loves it so much, and he's a Rolls Royce in his craft. So I'm a fixed personality, so I chose him as my target, not to be like, because I have my father to idol over, my mother, and many other actors, but I chose that man in particular because I just connect with him, and our birthdays are very close. I think they're like 6 days apart or something, which is pretty cool, or maybe like 20 days apart, but it's in the same month. So there's a relatability there to him. Yeah, no, I love Daniel. I think it's great. And I also think what's great he's doing now with his son, Ronan, coming back out and allowing his son to direct him is beautiful. So I told my father, and my father was happy to hear that too. So we're trying to do things together more like that. And I see that as a worldly, universal sign of, hey, you're on the right path, guys. Just stay on target.
You and your brother Nick have written a number of screenplays for feature films. What would you say drives your creativity as a storyteller?
It's something that comes from within. I can't really explain it. It just kind of is there. And it's the mesh of spiritualism and DNA that just kind of pioneers this really cool realm that you live in as your life. That's the best way I can say it, because my mother and my father both have amazing traits. So do their parents on both sides. And you try to see the positive in everything despite the history, family drama, etc., and put it all together and say, oh, that's why I do this. Now let me take that and use it as a key to unlock this character's venture, and then as a fuel or gasoline, so to speak, for my writing capabilities. And then you grow in that process as well. So my brother has the same. We're very close. Even when we butt heads, we always find a way to make it work, and that's something that you can feel in our scripts when we write. It's just when you see us write together, it's the coolest thing. We actually documented a few things. I have to find footage, but we have the camera off to the side, and you see us, and we forget about it, and it's like, bah, 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 and it's 8 hours of that, and the phone's too hot, it stops recording or it dies out of battery, and it's just a cool thing to witness on the side and to know it's there, but to enjoy it. There is zero ego, and it's beautiful because we do this because we just love it. There is no other reason. Yes, we'll make a living doing it, of course. That's part of society. But there is more to it than that. There's exploration, there's evolution, there's what people like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and Robert Zemeckis have discovered in their time as filmmakers, and everybody else. There's so many incredible people in this industry.
Well, what's fascinating to me, Kris, I have to tell you, I mean, we've talked about how really brutal the industry can be. There's a lot of con artists, there's insincerity, there's betrayal. And then for you, on top of everything else, it's very hard, I would imagine, for you to know who you can trust, especially if people think you're rich or they think that they can get to your father through you. And yet you convey to me that with all that toxicity in the industry, you want to express your spiritual purpose on this earth through cinema, right?
That's correct. Yeah, well said. It's true. That's what we're here for. Otherwise, you might as well just, Russian roulette or sleep and hope to die. There's no, why would you torture yourself and do something you don't want to do because of fear? There's a big thing on that. Have no fear, do it anyway, all that stuff. It's true, but it's not that easy. You have to understand why and self introspect and love yourself. And a lot of the young offspring of celebrities don't love themselves because they're so bent up on what the world is saying and not what they're saying. They're not listening to their purpose. They're not listening to their heart and soul. And that's something that through trial and tribulation, you either come out of or you don't. And I believe everybody can if they just put their mind and soul to it, spirit to it. They can step up out of the darkness and into the light, and it's their own light. They created it themselves. They found a way because that's the survival mechanism of our evolution as a race, as society. We have that systematic trigger, that Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder telling you, hey, the fork in the road, the angel and the devil nonsense, all that stuff. So you have to, my advice to all people out there, including sons and daughters of celebrities, young and old alike, doesn't matter what age you are, we're all in this together. You have to introspect and love yourself. It's the first thing you should do. And I think sports helped me with that. I really do. It first of all, on a scientific level, it rushed a bunch of blood to my brain saying, yo, dude, what are you doing? And then there I am saying, you're right. I feel like shit. I look like shit. Okay, this is going to stop. This is going to stop now. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to balance it out because I think that's more powerful, especially if you don't want to quit. You have to find a balance. If you want to quit, it's easier once you stay consistent. For example, substance abuse or any other type of bad habit, doesn't matter. The principle applies to it all the same. And consistency is key. That's the last thing I have to say about this. Unless something comes up after, but consistency with everything is key. If you consistently hate on yourself, you will consistently fail and you won't realize why. Because you're blinded by your own self. And consistency and being positive and working at something, even when it's hard, even when you have to pull yourself through the mud, that one little chance might lead to a, inertia. The door opens more, and here we are with the other stars, and you're back on top where you belong. And then that's where it really matters. That's where you either dive really hard or you stay on target. And stay on target means love yourself and stay on target to the truth of what you want to represent. That to me is everything.
Well, you should not have difficulty loving yourself, Kris, because there's a lot to love there.
Thank you, sir.
I saw on your IMDb page that you appeared in the miniseries Franklin. What was that experience like?
Wow, that was an experience and a half. That was one of the coolest experiences I ever had in my film career thus far. I got that audition through a friend of a friend who just suggested me off to the side. I never knew about it. My agent doesn't really call me, which is interesting. I don't know why. Why don't you call me, Mike? I'll give your name out there, but not your last one.
Mike,
So,
call
sorry.
Kris right now.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Not Mike, Matt. They're brothers, though. So, yes, Matt, call me. I always forget because years ago I put his number in my phone accidentally as Mike, and I kept calling his brother, and I'm like, is that why? Then I kept calling Matt, and I was like, okay, now I understand. I made a mistake, but still, he hasn't given me a buzz. But I'm still faithful to him. I know that one day when things start to escalate, I'll gladly welcome him back into my life because I'm not one to hold a grudge against. There's no growth in grudge holding when you can fix the issue.
But
But
I
to go
think a
back,
lot of people
yeah,
think they just assume that because you're the son of this big superstar, that your phone's ringing all the time.
yes, yeah, they do. They do assume that.
It's not
You
true.
No, it's not, and you have to work for it. You have to work for it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fun. The outcome would be boring. You wouldn't have any growth. You wouldn't realize how you got there, what your trials and tribulations were, what you learned from them, from yourself and your decision making. But going back to Franklin, I was suggested through an audition through a line producer who wanted to get into producing, who was friends with the director of two of the episodes. There were 6 episodes, and he was the original showrunner. I think he became the showrunner at the end of the day. And so he was like, you know what? Yeah, sure. That sounds interesting. Why not? Because this gentleman is an amazing director. His name is Martin Makariev, Makarieve, Bulgarian director. He did a wonderful movie called The Heart in the Machine, which was accepted into the Academy, minus all the check marks you need to get placed into the Academy, which I find ridiculous because that's how you lose great cinema. Anyway, Martin was the reason why I was accepted into the auditioning process. I did 2 auditions. And then I was granted right here in my apartment, and I was granted options of characters to play. And I was so humbled by this sudden rush of opportunity that my wife and I sat down. I sat down with my father. I said, "What do you think, guys? Which character do you think I should play more here on my auditions?" And they sat down and watched them all and said, "You know what? This guy's more you." And okay, I studied that guy, but it didn't connect to me. I went with the other character, which was shorter lived, but here's the magic behind it. I locked that role and I went there. We shot 3 or 4 episodes, and then the show got canceled, unfortunately. And we're in Bulgaria on the New York street, New Boyana Studios. There's Mount Vitosha behind us, but they CG'd that out for the premiere, for the trailer, the teaser. And we're in Mexico City, 1939, gangsters. And we didn't do Spanish accents, which we should have trained for, but the timing was so limited, so rushed. The production was really nice. The lighting from Martin's DP, Andre, I forget his last name, was incredible. It was as good as Gangs of New York. I mean, shaft lighting and old cars. I felt like I was going to be in a show that finally meant something to my acting prowess and style. And I met some great actors that are now all friends, and we're still on a group chat with 40 something actors on the group chat and people. It's crazy. And it opened up a lot of opportunities, but that show got canceled. And by choosing that character during the cancellation process and the political hiccups that were the behind the scenes of that particular production, I got to get into the storytelling department a little more, just how I naturally am, and started to rewrite my character with the director who was going to take over the previous director who failed at a lot of stuff timing wise, hence then losing a lot of money on a daily basis. So we were trying to rewrite the story, get the whole cast back, and they're still trying to get the show back up and running. And there's a lot of lost faith in it. I still have faith in it to some degree because I've looked people in the eyes and They told me, we're going to work on it. We're going to shake your hand. I was never paid for it, and I'll come out on that. Everybody else wasn't paid for it. Departments weren't paid for it. So we're all like, X amount of thousands of dollars waiting for money. A lot of people almost took legal action. Some didn't. I think there was one or two actors that had a pay or play deal, which is smart on their agent's part. But again, I didn't have my agent reach out to me here to fight for me. It was just me. So through that lucrative process of life, I met Martin. With Martin, I've written 2 scripts already. And we would love to work with him on multiple other projects, one of which my father is involved. My father met Martin, so that tram left the station with them both on it. I met some great actors who I can call on right now saying, hey, do you want to be a part of this project? They will hop, skip, and jump, be a part of this project. And it's just beautiful that through this process of dichotomy of being sad and happy and angry, 6 months in Bulgaria or 5.5 months in Bulgaria, the last month and a half staying on my own dime to write this other script with Martin, this Western with my father and stuff that we're working on hard now to try to get off the ground. But there's magic behind when something doesn't work out. And that taught me a lot. That taught me how to just kind of surf the wave, but not let it drown you. I still surf the wave and I'm still trying to get that particular project off the ground in some way, shape, or form, which has been quite a hellish process of waiting, but worth it. Even if it never comes back, Harvey, it's still worth the gifts that I got from it. So I apply that to my next projects to make sure money is spent correctly and every other detail I've learned.
Do you trust your destiny that the connections you make are for a reason and that this is all going to make sense eventually?
100%.
So, where do you
Yes.
see yourself in 5 years? What do you see yourself doing?
Well, I'm going to say, hopefully, I'm going to still. So here's my thing is I can't depend on the current work I do on the side, and I can't depend on people to call me, hey, I want you in a movie. But out of the 10%, I can depend 2% on others, 3%, because they're not in control totally of everything at the same time. It's not their fault in particular that a production gets canceled. It could be so many reasons. So I can't fully depend on that, not them particularly. As for myself, I can depend on myself 100%. So what I did now the last 5 years, I've been working very hard on a side hustle that I do just to have consistent income on something that I share a passion with. And with that income, I finance my own projects. And so I've just recently directed a Star Wars fan film that I'm very much in post production on, heavy post right now with my team. And through that 5 year process, I've met people from Bulgaria, and I've also met people along the way on small little films. Like, for example, my cinematographer, Nathaniel Regier, who's an amazing cinematographer, Reiger. Follow him on Instagram. He's great. It's not a shout out. Well, it is, but he's incredible at what he does. He's going to be very successful in his life. But I met him on a film pilot to a sales teaser, so to not pilot, of a project called The Old Man in the Dunes, which I guess got picked up now by Angel Studios, fully financed, and they were the ones financing this teaser that we shot, and it was starring Jeff LaBeouf, Shia LaBeouf's father. And crazy how manifestation works, if you believe in that sort of thing. I was a huge fan of Shia LaBeouf. He's one of the people I admire the most, next to Daniel Day-Lewis, I would say, and Peter Stormare. Shia finally, not to deviate, but to backtrack some years, a decade or so ago, was on Jay Leno with my dad. And one of my closest friends at the time was with me, and he's like, "Hey, your dad's gonna be with Shy." I said, "What? How did you know about this?" Because he followed my father on Instagram and learned some stuff, and I should have known before. So I asked my father if I could go to the Jay Leno show with him. He said, "Yeah, sure." So I met Shia at Jay, and also I got to see one of my favorite bands at the time perform. It was Fun, and Fun was performing, and my buddy and I would sing to Fun in the car. We were drunk and have a good time. So it was like an epic moment in that night. And I started believing in manifestation to the point where I rode my motorcycle to Shia's house, and I put a note in his mailbox, said, "Hey, if you ever want to ride motorcycles together, I noticed you have the same bike I do. Let's ride." And I never heard back from him, but it's cool because 2 years later, the Ice Bucket Challenge came out, and I nominated him, Kelsey Grammer, who I adore as well as an actor, and Keanu Reeves, who's also a very big inspiration to me, mentally speaking. And so he's the only one who replied. And so manifestation kept growing. Now, flash forward to this project I was just telling you about with Jeff LaBeouf. And I got to be next to Jeff, talking to Jeff. I have his number, and every morning he messages me, "Good morning, God bless you, take care of yourself and your family." And it's beautiful. And I was just like, you know what? That is so cool. I'm so humbled by this experience. So there were other projects like that during this 5 year, going back to what we were mainly talking about, process, in which I've met guys like Nathaniel Ray Gear, who was a cinematographer on that Jeff LaBeouf project. I didn't get picked up for the actual film, I don't think, because I didn't get a call back, but I got to work with them. And there's a reason there in destiny for what you said, that yeah, cinematographer Nathaniel, now Star Wars, and it's all part of our evolution. And if you're very aware, like my father said for many years in France and was made fun of for, which now they praise him for, if you're aware of yourself and your personality and what you can bring to the planet as your purpose, then I think that's the secret to staying consistent and getting, appreciative things done in life, and appreciating your past and where you come from and what was given to you, like my friends through this 5 year process. So to tie it all in, Harvey, and sorry for going like this, to tie it all in, I now make my own projects with this team of people that I've met during this 5 year process, including my sound designer, Evan Haley, who's incredible. I have so much to say, and I wish I could. Maybe the next round or the next question, it might fit in somewhere. But all these people have met me in the past somehow and are now a part of my life. And the stories of how I met them or how they came back in my life through hardships, when you really dissect it and are aware of it, is absolutely incredible. And it makes you complete full tank to keep going because you're aware of it. And I don't let fear or hardships get to me like they used to.
I think that's amazing in the sense that not only do you have the vision and the focus and a sense of who you are and what you want to do, but you are very instinctual. You are intuitive. And I happen to believe feeling what I feel on the other side of the screen coming from you is an incredibly strong sense of intuition and a sense of you knowing what's right for you and who you can trust and what feels right as something to pursue. That's going to stand you in very good stead.
Thank you, Harvey.
I
I'm happy
absolutely
to see
know
that.
it. I absolutely know it. And I can't wait to have you back. In our remaining moments, I do want to mention you don't have a website, but you are on Facebook, Instagram, and X. I know that celebrities use social media to connect with their fans and speak their truths, but if you could speak to the public and help them understand that we're not always being fair in the expectations that we place upon children of major superstars, what would you say?
Yeah, it's a funny one. Social media is interesting. I was off for 7 years for a period of time and I loved it. It was great. But again, those lucrative moments of opportunities don't come through. You have to use the system to some degree. It can make offspring of celebrity seem like something, like with AI stuff now, you can manipulate stuff and lie about things, translations, subtitles, whatever it may be, for political or media gain. And by the way, the X thing, I don't think the X one is my actual profile. I think that might be a fan made one or something that an old social media manager might have made for me. I never operate from. And if it's active, then it's probably fan made. I'm just on Instagram, and I think there's an old Facebook account. I don't even know myself. It's sad. I should know. How it affects, your question was how it affects.
Like how you would use social media to explain to the public that, in my opinion, listening to you carefully, our expectations are not reasonable when we are thinking about people like you. We assume all kinds of things that aren't true, that you're loaded with money so you don't have to work, that your phone never stops ringing because everybody wants you on their movies and their TV shows, that you don't have to audition. It's not true.
It's not, no. And yes, social media can definitely easily, because we're so used to this and quick responses, convince somebody that, hey, this is the fact. Oh, it must be true because I saw it on Instagram or whatever. I think if you're offspring of celebrity or are trying to be known for whatever reason, it's important to talk about it wholeheartedly. I think by doing that, those most humane videos go viral because they are real. And just like we discussed about the electromagnetic frequency field that we are speaking through right now, these things can be felt, and that's the magic there. I think by just being yourself and being as straightforward as possible, it's the best way. You can't go wrong. And I think you'll always survive because that is the foundation of the human race's evolution in terms of camaraderie, communication, a society, so to speak. You kind of have to stick out like a sore thumb because all the other thumbs are fake. You got to be yourself, and it's not that hard to do. You just have to be okay with yourself. I think that is the fuel that will be able to change what you're saying and how people perceive us. Because otherwise, how would you know? You wouldn't. You would just guess it the entire time. People will intercut videos and put music and say, "Look, he's an asshole." I mean, you can cut 10 interviews of mine and make me look like an absolute asshole, and it's probably been done. But at the same time, you're like, these interviews with wholesome people like yourself, that camaraderie that we have right now will help both our sides. And that's what's beautiful about the growth in the business, is this very interview, this moment, this type of approach.
Well, I want to say to you, I started out by saying that I know you don't grant a lot of interviews. You're very selective. I hope you can feel that my mission today was really to expose the soul inside Kris Van Damme, the person behind the image, and the person who has so much artistry and so much kindness and so much vision that you want to share with the world in order to make the world a better place. And I thank you so, so much for taking the time out of your schedule to give the public a chance to get to know you better. I'm very grateful. Thank you for taking the time to appear on our show, Kris.
Please consider me for another time. It was an absolute honor. I'll always make time for you, Harvey.
Thank you, and you are always welcome. Our guest has been the wonderful Kris Van Damme. My name is Harvey Brownstone. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time. Thank you to my producers, Steve Silver, my managers, Rick Marcelli and Robin Bragg Marcelli of the Marcelli Company in Hollywood, my director of programming, Robert Monaghan, my editor, Isaiah Sharalampidis, and my entire team at the XPTV1 network in the UK.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all the great interviews on the Harvey Brownstone Interviews YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are posted.